Okay. Hello, everybody out there. It's time for some Christian rock. Uh, Headbanging Zulu UK really drummed up a superstar rent-a-car guest here, Mega Jeff McCormick, down there. Oh, he even says Mega Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about Stryper, the classic era, first album to fifth album. Then they broke up for a while. It's like things happened and they changed genres to me, went bit more new metal, that type of thing. But always wanted to rank all these, and I surprised myself when I did this because I had it all in my mind. It's going to be easy, but once I went boiled down to listening to every song and wrote them actually out of 10, every single song, just to
Yeah, am they?
get a feel for it. My order is way different than I thought it was going to be, and I'm shocked. But anyway, um, yeah. And Jeff, what's your experience with Stryper? Did you know about them right from the get go, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I saw them, and if the people who watch my channel might have heard the story before, but I saw their album when it came out in the store. But at the time, my experience with Christian rock, people trying to push Christian rock on me at the time in my church, it was like, you should listen to Petra. And so I listened to Petra, and they're very light. I mean, at that time, I was listening to everything that had hair back in the day, hair and makeup and Motley Crue's and all of the Judas Priest, everything. So nothing compared to that. So when I saw Stryper's first album, I flipped it over and saw on the back of it to number one boss man, Jesus Christ. And I immediately said, okay, it's Christian rock. And as a lot of people do, I just didn't give it much credence. And so I put it back and didn't buy it. And I don't know, at some point, months later, not quite a year, because it was still within a year of it coming out, but months later, I went ahead and bought it, and absolutely became one of my favorite albums, period. So, and then, a lot changed after that as far as what I started listening to and everything. And so it was not too long after that, about a year later, that I trashed all of my music and just listened to Christian rock, which at the time was like 5 albums. So I went from having hundreds of mainstream rock records to tossing them all away and having like 5, Stryper being 2 of them at the time. So anyway, yeah, it's a crazy story.
That's the same story as me almost, because I wasn't a Christian until about 85, I think. And before that, I had hundreds of rock albums, your Sabbath and Priest. And then I got talked, the guy at work started talking about God, and I went, oh, yeah, I guess you kind of have to make a decision here. You're going to die. So you're either going to like God or not like God or don't care about him. So I went to a church, and the guy talked about the thing that sold me was the pastor talked about football, Canadian Football League. I grew up on football. So like you can like football and God at the same time. Like you're not just, him, there, thou, thy, it's just like for real people. So hucked out all my records, same thing as you. Then Petra was my first one that I heard, and I kind of got into it. But, it was Beam a Seat, not of this world era, pretty mellow. But then found out about Stryper, and then, oh, wow. And then Messiah Prophet and 4th Street. Then, the floodgates open. But there was exactly like you. I'd have a couple of little CDs, but I could play them to death. I could play Yellow and Black Attack, on and on. But, yeah, anyway, and how about you, Headbanging Zulu UK? What's your experience with Christian rock?
Not a lot really back in the day. In the 80s, Stryper would have been released in the UK because it was Music for Nations on their label. It's not a record I would have definitely bought myself. So I was sort of a lapsed Christian then. I didn't get baptized until 06. It was not a band. I can't even remember seeing it, which is rare for me because a lot of these bands I can remember seeing, but you ain't got the money because records and that were very expensive over here in the early 80s because the CD revolution was coming in and they weren't cheap. But it's like Jeff, the same as Jeff. It's a record that I wouldn't have given the time of day to back in the day if I'd been aware of it. But what I did find confusing about it, I know I'm jumping the gun, is looking at this record. I wouldn't have known that was a Christian rock album. If you look at Isaiah, it says Isaiah 53:5, and that's another thing I noticed with this record. We'll talk about this. When it was, I don't know if it was packaged like this in the Canada or America, because that's the band version one. the way it was packaged, if you was non-Christian, you would have probably bought that album. You know what I mean? In the 80s, it had a very bad reputation over here, Christian in metal, and it was known as white metal. And I talked to a friend of mine, and he said it was a very specialist subject. Unless they were put out on a major label like music, it probably wouldn't have got released in the UK. But I wasn't definitely aware of Stryper back when these albums came out. I believe '84 was the first one. I may be wrong, around about that time. I wasn't aware of Stryper. It's only sort of since being the VC, very like with Greg's introduced me to them, and Scott Waters. But back in the day, it was a funny one. But it's just a strange band here in the UK because Christian music's never took off, not like it has in America or Canada and other countries in Europe and England in general. It just seems to be very marginalised. It's a specialist, and the stuff tends to be very, very expensive. Some of these prices are unreal for these records. But that's my experience with it. But a lot of these tracks I've only heard for the first time, and I knew which the seminal album was. And that's about my experience with it.
I think the thing that made Stryper so different was the fact that they weren't on a Christian label like Petra and all those bands. That is what I think got them out there in the mainstream. They were an enigma. It wasn't a huge label, but it had some decent distribution. So I mean, I found it in a main chain store around here. It wasn't like it was in an indie section. Might have been in an indie section, but not really. But so it had wider distribution. So they really did break down the walls when it came to getting Christian music into more of the public eye than other bands had been previous to that. So
but over here, like I don't even remember seeing any of these albums. You may have got the odd Leviticus album in a bin, but that's basically all we got. But it's a Stryper. They're a solid band, and I like them. I certainly collect their stuff. And what I've heard of them, like some of these tracks, one of them, which I'll reveal later, really got to me. I really loved it. But there's a lot of all good stuff. It's definitely a band I want to explore and collect in the future.
And that was you mentioned Leviticus. That back when I said I went from all those records down to 4 or 5, I did go out, and in one of the local record stores at the time where I was living, they had an import section, and that's where I shopped everything. I picked up all the stuff from the UK, all the music for the nations, all the bands, that were the secular bands. But I noticed in that bin at some point, this band called Leviticus. And I knew it was Christian because I flipped it over and there's a scripture on the back. Again, didn't pay much heed to it. In another record store in town, they had another section, which was kind of indies. And I saw the First Saint album and the First Messiah Prophet because they were both on very small labels. So once I got to that point where I started saying, I'm going to listen to Christian music only, I went right out. I bought that Leviticus album that I saw, the very first album they had. I bought the First Saint album, EP, and the First Messiah Prophet. And in the same bin, I picked up a couple Barnabas albums. They were on a Christian label. Anyway, and so that's where my record collection went from hundreds of mainstream, secular metal bands down to Stryper, Messiah Prophet, Saint, Leviticus, and Barnabas. Yeah, and that was really about it in 1985. That was easily found, as far as harder rock stuff. So,
yeah. But no, over here, you basically our record stores, you got all the rubbish, the disco and the pop. Then you may got a very small heavy metal selection, probably about 20 records if you're lucky. It was like your Led Zepp's, your Deep Purples, all the big bands. I had to travel to London to find the obscure stuff. Because you may have heard it in the UK, but Soho in London, it's famous for something else now that we won't go into. There was a couple of good record stores in Soho I used to go for music and stuff like that. And that's the only way you could get any good stuff. But the English record stores, the imports were way out of our price range. We could never afford one. And there were very what I call generic selection of music. If it wasn't hitting the charts, and it was just like your big rock bands that everybody knew, your Purples. But if you wanted to go beneath the surface, like I did when I got a bit sort of in advance collecting, around about 85, 86, then you had to go to the specialist boys. And obviously, then they used to charge you big money for some of the stuff, but it was quite a trek. Because I used to go to Birmingham, Manchester, and London to get my stuff.
It's kind of funny because while you're back in those days and you're finding, I guess it's just we're in the U.S., you're there, you're over there getting high import prices for U.S. stuff. I'm over here buying everything I can from the U.K. that's in the import bin. You know, the Iron Maiden singles and the U.K. edition. Like I said, all the stuff on Music for the Nations, just all of the cool singles and records, and all the stuff we can get from overseas. So it was like, I'm buying UK stuff and you're, having a hard time getting the US stuff. So it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, it is. I mean, as I say, in the UK, we've been voted the least Christian country on the planet. If you mention Jesus in a school, it can get you expelled. They seem to be promoting the Islam. And, it's terrible. But you mentioned like religion, it's quite a dirty word over here. But I've noticed in America, in Canada, it's completely the opposite. And also, you got to remember, also in America and Canada, you had more stuff released over there. I mean, I read in a book your releases when they released a record. I think you had literally vast amounts of records. So some of the stuff where you could get more ease and I could only dream of. And it's sort of vice versa. You know what I mean? What I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
I read that in America, some of these records they released in huge quantities to cope with the demand. And but one thing they did not release in this country was like Christian music. It was just like white metal. That's like it was termed that. Nobody ever bought it. I rang up a dealer friend of mine. He's sort of virtually retired now, and he said he'd never stock it in the bins because he said there's no demand for it.
And there were a lot of bands that got that white label, that white metal label, that weren't Christian bands. But I think it seemed like over here, anything that had a spiritual bent to it was labeled as white metal. And, the biggest one I could think of is Trouble. They had very Christian lyrics. Their first album is called Psalm 9, very Christian lyrics, but they were not a Christian band, and they have said that. But, you turn out later to find out that, well, some of the guys in the band were. But the band itself was never considering themselves, and Eric, the singer, never considered himself, a Christian band, but they got that label. So, but yeah, over here, I guess they didn't call them Christian. Well, some people might have called them Christian rock, but I'm trying to think back in the day, did they call Stryper Christian rock or did they call it white metal? I don't recall. It seemed like white metal was something that always just got thrown around for other bands, but maybe they did. I don't know. I'm getting old. I can't remember all that far back.
Yeah, I'm the same as well. It's nice to meet a kindred spirit. My brain cells are going as well because I'm 58 this year. And I'm losing my marble slowly as well.
I'll be the same. So in July.
Yeah. I could tell you, right, at one time, you mentioned a band. I could tell you every release, the date, and all the records in sort of 7 or 8 in order. Forget it. I can't, I can't do it now. I think it's the marbles are starting to go.
I know. Every time I'm making a video and it's like, it. Yeah. But then when you get in front of the camera and you start talking about it, all of a sudden it's gone. And I all the time I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that 80? Yeah. It's like it escaped you. So
how is it for you, Greg? Do you like that, or is your brain getting better?
Mine was never any good, so I don't have any problem.
No change.
No change. Just an idiot, jackass. That's all.
Yeah, me too. But anyway, should we do the first album? Should we go in order? They're starting with the Yellow Black Attack.
I'm gonna tell you. I realize now. I think I have seen one of your all show before, but you know what? I kind of ranked them just in my mind. But I know you all go song by song, don't you? I know I've seen Greg do rankings before, and he does that where he's got them. And I didn't.
You haven't. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. I didn't go into that depth where I'm going to say this song is 5 and this, and it adds up to 8. I thought it. I guess I totally forgot of that approach. I was just thinking. Okay.
We didn't do that for this one. This is just a generic.
Oh, okay. Good. I can relate things about some of my favorite songs, but I didn't go to as much depth as I thought you all might have done. As soon as he showed a list, when Greg showed his list, I'm like, oh crud! I don't think I did what my assignment was.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's not.
Refresher.
I only did mine today, so I've been ill all week, and I've had a couple of problems, and I spent about 6 hours doing mine. Because the simple reason is it was great because it was such a holiday for me. being able to do it, plus the fact I haven't heard a lot of this stuff before, so I had to listen to it 2 or 3 times. So I
Ooh.
may have overmarked a couple, so I may have undergraded a couple. So you know why, but a lot of this stuff was new to me, so I gave it a good listen to today. But I thoroughly enjoyed myself today, just feet up, listening to this stuff on my laptop. And yeah, it's a new experience. Well, most of it was new to me.
Okay.
So could we please go? Let's discuss our number 5 album, then number 4, and build up the drama for the hordes of fans. You know, it'll build up a lot of excitement.
Okie doke, then. Should we start with number 5 album?
I'll start at number 5 because this was kind of a shock that I picked this one as number 5, but I did. So the big reveal. I guess I could show the album at the same time. Dig it out. Got a couple of different versions. You showed one already.
Yeah.
This is my number 5.
Oh, I'm surprised at that.
Wow. We should kick him off the show right now.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah.
Should we remove? I'll remove him. Just say the word, Jeff.
Out with you.
Nice knowing you, mate. I've got a new partner now.
Well, you see, if we went by song, top 10 songs, a couple
No,
of
we're only joking.
To Hell with the Devil, the title track is a 10 out of 10, and More Than a Man is arguably their best song, one of the best songs in rock history by anybody. I don't care who it is. But the rest, Rockin' the World's, you know, and Calling on You's okay, Free. I don't know. I just sort of put them as mid-pack thing. This is just a picture disc of To Hell with the Devil. But don't forget to use the split screen thing, Steve.
Oh, sorry, mate. Thank you,
okay.
mate.
Yes,
see, I told you I was losing my brain cells.
So anyway, since you guys are going to be talking about this album later too, I won't go too long. But yeah, this is kind of a. And there's actually at the local record store, the guy just got in a used copy of this, or a copy of this with the poster in it. And I almost I made a trade for stuff, but I took the money instead of the poster. But I still might grab that again because I really love that poster. But yeah, I put To Heck with the Devil as number 5. I know. Go ahead, get me off here now. I don't deserve to be on here.
You're forgiven.
Mine actually has the poster. See that? I have the poster on my picture disc.
Can you
One second, please, bud.
Can you show Steve the poster? Do you mind taking it out?
I'm afraid it might fall apart. It might.
Okay.
Oh, don't worry about it.
No, it's here. It's just whether I can get it back far enough to show it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic poster. I think it's an excellent poster.
Mainly the pictures from the inside, if you're able to. It's got the Stryper logo, and then it's got the pictures with the glare all over the glare. I can't get away from the glare.
Yeah.
Man.
No, that's an excellent poster.
That is, isn't it? Beautiful.
Yeah, actually, I think I've had this picture just probably since back around the time. I mean, I had to put it in a new case because the case was falling apart, so I cut the hype off and replaced it into a new case. I had these picture discs hanging. I have a room out back, my shed, that I converted to a band room where my band used to practice. And I used to have all my music out there, CDs and all of my memorabilia, my action figures, my Marvel figures. And I had a bunch of picture discs I hung them up on the wall. And this one got hung up just with using some tacky strip stuff. But, you know, it just being in the open air, hanging out on that shed, it eventually got a little dirty. And then the plastic got ugly. And so I had to swap it out. But
that's a great wall decoration, though, that picture disc.
Yeah, I had a bunch of different picture discs I could, you know, just because I wasn't buying records at the time. I mean, I wasn't really buying vinyl. So the picture discs I just bought on eBay and stuff. Some of the other bands just as decorations, but I had the Stryper stuff. So I have their 7-inch single from back in the day too. So just used to hang that stuff up.
So what's your 5th worst album then, Jeff? All
right, I'm going to go with In God We Trust.
Oh, now you're the one in trouble.
Well, somebody picking a worst, picking a least favorite is tough when you got 5. It's like picking one of your favorite kids, as I said the other day in the video. But
it's got to be done now. We're ruthless on this channel.
Yeah, I mean, so I was telling my wife today. She said, "So what's the topic you're talking about?" I said, "Well, we're looking at worst to best or whatever." She goes, there is no worse Stryper album.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it's tough. How do you rank something? And all I would have to say is, I love this album. Okay, it is notoriously known for being the most overproduced digital everything, squeaky clean. Even Michael says it's too over the top, squeaky clean. I absolutely love the album. To me, this album is almost a cookie cutter carbon copy of To Hell with the Devil. You
Yeah.
can go song by song, and it's like light song, heavy song, radio song, and it sounds just like it, but with a little more squeaky cleanness, which to me takes away a little. I mean, and, The Hell with the Devil was a digital recorded album too, but I don't think it was the DDD that this one ended up being.
Mhm.
But it had a little more oomph to it. But this one, I love it all, but it's very squeaky clean. But it's really tough. But something had to be in last, right? And so in my case, it was this one. And I think it really came down to time spent listening to them. I think with each subsequent album, as the years go by, there's more. And of course, this is in the time frame when I'm only listening to Christian metal. There was a lot more Christian metal to listen to when this album came out than there was on previous albums when I only had 5 or 6 albums. Oh, then I had 10, maybe then I had 20. By this point, Christian rock had really exploded. And so it probably didn't get quite as much airtime in my brain as the other previous albums. So I love it. I don't have anything against it, but somebody had to be in last, right? So in this case, it was this one. So
So what do you think of the song? Oh shoot. Well, In God We Trust is a 10 out of 10. I hope you think that at least.
I mean, The Writings on the Wall, that's one of the really heavy ones. The Rain, all the Oz Fox songs tended to be the most heavy. But like I said, I absolutely love the album. Some of even the ballads. I mean, they had a way with ballads to make even ballads sound great. And I mean, every one of these songs is ingrained in my brain. And it's like I said, somebody had to be last. I didn't like to put any of them in there, but off the top of my head, I just felt like this probably was a tad bit, of a weaker offering than maybe the next one that I'd have on my list. So, but you ask me tomorrow, it'll be different, probably.
Yeah, I just checked my list on this. I've got it as well.
Oh, you both bumped it to the bus.
For the simple reason is it's the most poppiest album I've heard of theirs. And it's some of the songs, that 80s style of rock metal I didn't take to back in the day. Like Jeff said, it was, the sort of stuff you heard in films, and it was sort of lazy rock compared to what you heard before. I agree. The best track on it to me was that one you mentioned.
Right.
There's a couple of high points, but not many.
Mm-hmm.
I found Writing on the Wall to be the best track.
Oh, yeah, that's a great song.
Yeah, that got the best mark. But it was just that style, because I don't feel I've had much experience as you two guys. But I just found it poppy, like I written when Michael Jackson or the Jacksons met heavy metal. It had you imagine the early Michael Jackson sort of vocals. He did a lot, but unless they had 2 lead singers, which I don't know. I think they had the same lead singer all through their career. I may be wrong. But they don't. He doesn't sort of sing the songs thing. But of the 5, I felt in my heart that was the weakest one. And I also thought, I said, if it was more than 5 or 6 quid, now I've heard it, I wouldn't buy it. I think it's worth about, in English money, about 5 or 6 quid. And that was another thought. It's not an album I'd rush out to buy.
Well, I've got a copy for you if you want it.
Yes. Cheers, mate.
That way you get it for free. I'll put it in the Zulu.
It's listenable, but it's sort of like some of the riffs. That's what I call cheesy heavy metal. In the 80s, you sort of got bored of very quick. It sort of echoed that. I mean, if I hear it say 5 or 10 times, I might change my mind about some of the songs. But like you say, something's got to come last. And out of the previous 4, it was definitely the weakest of the 5, in my opinion. But you compare it to some of the later albums, it may be better, you know what I mean? But what we compared to, I found it was the weakest one.
It's got a lot of hooks on it. A lot of the songs are very hooky. And every song to me is, I can sing along. It's just, but yeah, I get what you're saying too. It is a little more on the more commercial side, just a tad.
Yeah,
So,
it's just maybe a bit over. We'll talk more about that later, but it's just maybe a bit over, but not as over top of another album, which we'll discuss later. But yeah, it's sort of that cheap. It's hard to describe, put it into words, but that style of metal used to irk me off back in the day, and I used to fast forward it. You know what I mean? And yeah, it sort of came in bundles on that record.
Okay, well, at that, I'll go to my number 4. In God we trust. That's a 10 out of 10 every day of the week. The writing on the wall is a 10 out of 10 every day of the week. The rain, I gave it a 9. Then it kind of drops. You always hear for you, keep the fire burning, like 7.5, and then it goes down below that. So, but those are the high points. Like, it's one of those that I would fast forward this album, but I could play In God We Trust and The Writing on the Wall for the rest of my life, and I'd be happy. They're just absolutely 10 out of 10s by any band's imagination. Put them up against Maiden or anyone you want. I don't care who it is, but yeah, I even wrote a little note beside Writing on the Wall. I said, can't play it loud enough, because I just had headphones on, and I'd still want it louder. But yeah, I give that one. That's my number 4 right there.
So what album was that? Sorry, Greg.
In God We Trust.
the one we just picked.
Right, sorry. Cheers. Thanks for that.
Okay, so I guess Mega Jeff can go.
Yeah. So for me, it's the other way around. So to hell with the devil is number 4 for
Sorry,
me.
mate, I'm falling asleep. Yeah.
You what?
Cheers, buddy.
Oh,
okay, there. Yeah. So yeah, for me it was this one, and only because it's commercial like In God We Trust. To that point, it had the hugest. This is probably their most popular album to the world. It put them on the map with MTV. Major success. Major money coming into the band. Major video productions between this and In God We Trust. It's probably the most popular album that people know, and maybe I've overplayed it, and maybe that's why it comes down the list a little bit. But yeah, so and again, somebody had to be in there, and this one just, kind of, again, it's probably just because it's overplayed. I mean, but to hell with the devil, The Way, More Than a Man, Rockin' the World. I mean, sing along song even. I mean, this song is chock full of some of the best tunes.
Yeah, it is.
But with it being so, we just played it to death, and I saw them on tour for this one probably at least 3 times.
Oh.
So I don't know. Like I say, just in going back in my brain now and mentally trying to rack it up into a top 5, this one came in at number 4. So, but it's a great album, and like I said, it's probably their most popular, great album. And like I say, I do have that and the picture disc. I don't have the black cover that Greg showed, but I do have the original Angel one.
Why that album was banned? Why was that cover banned? Was it the Pentangle?
Well, it was banned in the Christian bookstores because of the imagery. You've got fire, you've got a pentagram on here, you've got the devil, you got, these muscly, half-nude angel guys. It's just, this was too much for the Christian markets. And so the Christian markets made them change it for their markets. I think in the regular mainstream markets, this was normal and this was accepted. But when it came to the Christian market, and that wasn't uncommon. They did that with a lot of Christian metal. The first, Mortification album, they had to put it in a black wrapper in order to cover up the scary looking cover. So I think, Christian rock in the was not accepted in the Christian church very, very frequently at all in the 80s. And when this thing came out in the 80s, it was still somewhat taboo in the church. And so people didn't want to go to the Christian bookstore and see this kind of stuff. And so I'm sure people were brought, outraged, and they said, don't display that. And so the labels had to change things. So.
Yeah. Because I was reading up on me pentangles, whatever. I can't pronounce it this time of night. And apparently that one on there is the wrong type. The one you don't want to do, there's so many different pentriangles, whatever they're called. The dangerous one's got the single triangle at the bottom, and there's nothing else. And it was showing you, and he said apparently that one they keep showing on albums. That's the good one apparently. It goes back telling the history of it. But the one you don't want to do is a single. It's just got a single triangle bottom, and that's it. It's still roughly the shape, but it hasn't got the crossbar. It's a single triangle. That's the one that's bad news. So they're all getting their what's it's in a twist over nothing with them.
Well, in the rock and roll, in rock and roll and metal in general, the regular pentagram, with the goat's head, the upside down star looked like a goat's head. I mean, that was the common symbol in secular satanic music, the Slayers, the Venoms, mainly the Venoms and stuff. So I think that's kind of what has become the main symbol for that. And so when Stryper comes out with this, they associate the devil with that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, and it's still common to this day. You still see it on a lot of bands where they have the star.
No, that's
in
the harmless pentangle. That's the harmless one. Apparently, they're saying. And I was reading up on it. I'm not into that sort of stuff. It just happened. It came up on something, and it shows you them all, about 7 or 8 of them apparently. But that one, like, it's the harmless one that we perceive as the bad one. But the one that's bad, it's got this bottom triangle. It's just a bottom triangle, and it's got like the shape at the top, but it's only a single triangle coming down. It hasn't got the bar, and that's the bad one apparently. And I was quite shocked. I thought people is just a fuss over nothing. But yeah, so we're on number 4. This might shock the pair of you because I couldn't make my mind up here. It was Yellow Black and Tack is number 4. By the slimmest of margins.
Oh,
the first one. It's controversial. It's a good album. And I won't put myself up. We've seen it.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a good album. Some great tracks on it. Some sort of like club rock. Some they were obvious getting into the stadiums that time. There's more of a bigger production numbers. It's a decent first album, but it wasn't as good as the 2 followers. And it didn't it's sort of. If I've heard it sort of 10 times, I say it's a decent first album. There's nothing on there that really set me on fire. There was Come On Rock, that was a decent song. The first 2 were good, but he sort of got that same sort of sound that was round about the time that Motley Crue were doing and that sort of stuff. That same sort of guitar, Helter Skelter, I'm referring to. But it's a good first. It's not a bad album. None of the albums are, but having only heard it a couple of times, 3 times, it wasn't as good as the other 2, and it was a close one with another album. So that was on me number 4.
So a couple comments on that. So that's the version you listened to for your judgment, right?
Oh yes, I know what you're gonna say. 1984.
So you haven't heard the original then, right?
Yeah. I heard it. I listened to it on the internet, but I've got the original.
No, see that's actually the remixed edition that came a couple years later.
Right.
Okay. So anyway,
I didn't hear the original then.
Most people, I say a majority of people that I know don't like that version. and I think even Michael Sweet had commented that it was remixed and remastered. I mean, remixed and changed up and compressed. And you go back to the original edition, where it's just like raw and heavy. But anyway, I'll talk about this one later in my thing. But
thank you.
I would encourage you to check that out, the version that actually has the planet on it. And then I got a horrible glare. But anyway, that it's a different feel. So,
right. But thanks very much for that.
It may change your ranking, I think.
I think it will. Definitely will. Yeah.
No, I was disappointed with that second version. This slicker 2 years later reproduced like mix or whatever. I like the original by far. It's just heavier. It's just grittier. And I've got that record somewhere. There it is right in front of me here. Yeah. Anyway, I've got it right there. So I can send that to you, Zulu, too.
Hey, you're wearing the same shirt I am. Did you steal my shirt?
Yeah. It's soldiers. It's this one, right?
I should go change into a different Stryper shirt.
Soldiers
Ah,
Under.
yeah, I had that one back in the day.
This is my original because I was when I first saw him was that tour. So that's the one T-shirt.
And I bet you the tour dates that I saw him on are probably on that tour. What's like the
Sorry, Greg, I'm sleeping on the job, mate. Sorry.
What city are we looking for?
I saw him in Alabama, but I saw him early on in Florida.
Florida. I
Go,
saw
go.
them in Toronto of all weird places, but let's see, Florida, Pittsburgh,
Tampa,
Jacksonville,
No,
Tampa, Miami, Orlando.
it may not have actually been considered. Well, maybe it was the next tour. I saw him in I'd have to go back and look at the dates, but I saw him in like in Louisiana and in Alabama, and I'm thinking the Florida Tallahassee date, but that might have been To Hell with the Devil tour a little later, actually. So get my dates mixed. I got them all written down. So I saw him a handful of times between like 86 and 87. So
Oh yeah. Did you see them on this tour?
oh, okay. No, I think I saw him in 2018 on the History tour.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't come anywhere close for me on that tour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Interesting. Yeah. They're fantastic live. They're easily in my top 5 bands of all time for seeing them live. I'd even go and say it could even be number 1. They're just phenomenal live, I think. I saw them in the Soldiers Under Command tour. 30 years later, they sound just as good, if not better. So yeah, no, they're amazing live. I can't believe how young they still seem too. You know, they're nearly 100 years old and they look like they're still 30 or
Yeah, my the one history. I guess since we're talking concerts, real briefly, taking a break here from the rankings, but I saw them. I think when I went back and looked at it recently, looked up the tour dates, it was like one of the first or second tour dates, I think, for the To Hell with the Devil tour. But they played in a little club in Tallahassee, Florida. So I was at the time I was in the military station in Mississippi. It's about 3 hours away. Friend and I jumped in the car, drove over there early in the day. Went to the club, made sure we knew where it was. Okay, we're here. We see the club. Let's get something to eat. Let's wait. You know, we'll wait to get when they open the doors later. So we're kind of hanging out, and we're just kind of hanging out. And then out come the guys from Stryper, and they come out. And we see them go across the parking lot. We don't want to be fanboys and run up and act all crazy, right? And we watch them, and they walk down the street to the Pizza Hut, right down the street. So we go to Pizza Hut.
Yeah, wow.
And we get a table, like a table or two away from them, and we're just kind of talking, but we're not like running up to them. We're just like, and we're playing it cool, and we eat our lunch, and they eat their lunch, and then we follow them back to the club, and then we're just kind of hanging around, and then Robert comes out, and Robert's talking to us. He took me and my friends on the tour bus, which was a rental bus. I got pictures of him, us posing with him in front of the tour bus. He's talking to us for a long time. A couple other kids come up. He's talking to them. We're all kind of just hanging out. Then he goes back in. Then Tim comes out, and Tim sits around and talks to us for a while, and he's hanging out and everything. And then they went in, and then that was it. The other two didn't come out. Apparently, Michael wasn't feeling that great. Turns out he had gotten so badly sunburned the day before that he was almost immobile. Well, anyway, so we saw the show in a little club right up front. Boom, right there, right up front. Just little club. And then when the show was over, we went backstage. I mean, we're not back where they had to get back to get back on the bus, and we met them all again. Took pictures with them again. We met Oz. He took pictures with us. We met Michael. The road crew guys were carrying him out, like he had his arm around their shoulders, and they were like helping him. He was in such pain, and he was wearing like the Stryper sweatsuit. And he stopped and took pictures with us. Oz took pictures. Tim took more pictures. And yeah, it was great. So we got to meet them all. And then he basically got right on the bus, but he was supposedly in, that's got to be painful to be out there singing in spandex, which is skin tight.
Yeah.
When you've got sunburn for the whole show. So he was probably in a lot of pain at the end, but it was a great experience.
Amazing. Yeah. It's like I said. It's like I come from, you may not know this, but where I live, Birmingham's just down the road. home of heavy metal. It's about 30 mile away. And I said to Greg, he likes Slade. That's about 16 miles away in Wolverhampton. And if you go down Wolverhampton Market on a Saturday afternoon, you might bump into Dave Hill. And all the Birmingham lads are all down to earth. Even Ozzy, he's a nice fella.
Yeah.
Rob Alford, a mate of mine, seen most of Priest. They still drink in the same pubs. They've always done. But Halford doesn't touch the beer or alcohol anymore. And he talks to everybody. Ian Hill, the bassist, he met him in a pub in West Brom playing darts. And they say, for whatever you do, don't disturb him when he's playing dominoes and you're okay. If a fan's or he's playing his hand of dominoes, don't you're taking your life in your own hands. But as soon as the game is finished, then you got to speak to him. I know which pub he drinks in, but I'm not going to say online. But yeah, he drinks down a pub in West Brom. It's by the football stadium. They're still true to their roots, all the Birmingham lads.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Judas Priest because their current drummer, Scott Travis, he's from my town here.
Oh, wow.
So I have a lot of friends that know him, have played in bands with him. And he has a house. I've never met him. I've been back in Virginia Beach here for 20 years, but he has a house down near one of my favorite record stores, apparently. And when he comes home from tour, I mean, people say, yeah, you bump into him in Kroger grocery store. I mean, he's just about town. So, and I know people who, years ago before he did the whole California Racer X, all those bands, and then later Priest, that he played in a lot of the local bands around here. So I have yet to meet him, but just kind of a connection there with Judas Priest that you mentioned.
Yeah, and I saw his inaugural tour with Priest on the Painkiller tour in '91, and down a place in Aston, which is where Ozzy was born, and it's famous for two things: Aston University and Aston Villa football ground. And also Aston's famous because that's where Ozzy was born, down Lodge Road, and he was at the Aston Villa Leisure Centre, and that was when Scott joined Priest on the Painkiller tour, and he was phenomenal. And he did the Painkiller riff. He's a quality drummer.
Yeah.
Amazing drummer.
One day I hope to meet him. Hope to see him in town sometime. Just run into him in the grocery store or something,
Yeah, I saw him. I saw him when he wasn't really that famous because Priest, people don't know this, but when I saw him, they couldn't pack out. They weren't a very big crowd. It was about half a basketball court full. They did a show down at Hammersmith Odeon because their stock was really low at that time in the UK. And Alford was the best I've ever seen him. So he had his full vocal range then. It's fair to say he's not as good as he was, but he did Victim's Disguise. I never heard anything like it in my life. You'll never, ever, ever hear anybody sing like that, ever. The only one that can come close is dead is Freddie Mercury. Because a mate of mine saw Freddie live 4 or 5 times, and he said the only person could come close for vocal delivery is Mercury. And I saw him at his full capacity doing Victims changes. And I was just stunned. It was mind-blowing. You'll never hear anything like that in my life.
Yeah.
When he had an 8-octave range. And you're thinking, how does he hit that? And he just did Victims it went on for about 12, 15 minutes. And he was doing everything. Didn't lose a single note. It's just... It's like you're at the font of perfection. Where do you go from there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, well, Greg, it's your turn, mate. It's number 3, I think we're on, aren't we?
Yeah. And if there's one guy who could give Rob Halford a run for his money, it's Michael Sweet, the singer of Stryper, because he's hit some high notes.
I noticed.
He's, especially live, like...
Oh, yeah.
He's... And he sang with Boston. That's a neat little trivia thing. I would have liked to see him with Boston.
Same here.
He's still really melodic. He's a total melodic singer. But anyway, interest of time, my number 3 was my shock. I thought this was my easy number 5 because it's been in the dumpster for me ever since it came out. Against the Law. The last one. I don't even own it. I didn't like it that much when I heard it. It just seemed so different. But now I've got the first track, title track, a 9 out of 10, 2-time woman, 8 out of 10. Then you go to a couple of 7.5, but then a 9, then a 4. But then again, I've still got a 10 out of 10, a 9 point. This album's chock full of excellent stuff. And I read the legendary King Scott Waters, his No Life Till Metal CD review site, where he reviews all the albums. He talked about all the Stryper albums, and he's talked to me in the past about how he really liked Against the Law, and I thought, no, I don't understand what you're talking about. Where's the Bumblebee outfits? You have to have the Bumblebee outfits, and it's a new band, but it wasn't. This thing is what song was it? Caught in the Middle. That could be on any. That could be the best song on any Stryper album and the best song on any album. That's an unbelievable song. I think that was the only 10 I gave, but I gave a couple of 9s. Not that kind of.
Not that kind of man.
Yeah, that I gave that a 9. So I mean, there's a lot of, even the weaker songs are still like 7.5, 7.5. There's only one I gave a 4 just because it's probably the ballad lady or whatever. Like, I'm not a ballad guy, but yeah, that kind of blew me away. I'm like, oh, what have I been doing the last 50 years? Why didn't I listen to that album?
What did you give Rock the Hell Out of You?
A 9.5, the second best of the album. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I got 9, 8.
And that's almost from a first person listen. So I've heard it a few, number of years ago, maybe a little bit, and thumbed through it and went, but holy cow. So I'm shocked. That just blew me away. But that's why it's fun to hear Steve's opinion here, because he's hearing it with first time ears. So it's kind of neat to get that opinion. But anyway, that's my number 3.
All right. Well, my number 3 is Soldiers Under Command, and I'm going on the wrong side, so I'm trying to get my
number 3.
Sorry, fire away, Jeff. Hold it for the cheers, mate.
Middle.
So I've got 2 of these because Strypers. I don't do a lot of when I collect records. I'm not one of those people who collects variants, but when it comes to Stryper, I do. So I got the white one, and then I got the black one. So anyway, some of them I do, and again, it's tough to rank these, but this was probably, one of the most listened to albums back in the day, because it was like one of the first full-length Christian metal albums.
Yeah.
And it had, so before we got this, and just a little trivia here. So we had the Yellow and Black Attack. Then, they start giving us things like the singles, like Together as One, very much a power ballad. I've heard people use this for their wedding. And it's like, okay, that sounded good. That's going to be coming from the forthcoming Stryper album, and then Reach Out. We're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's a little better, getting a little better there. Reach Out back with Together as One again. Why are we going to get Together as One again? So we're getting little sniglets here. And then Soldiers Under Command's on the back of that. Why is this as a single for Together as One and not Soldiers? I don't know. But then the album comes out, and it's great. And you've got the sing-along song, Jesus, he's screaming so high, he's going so nuts, and makes me want to sing. Just, it's, the album is blowing us away. It's got everything from the commercial stuff to the love songs, the First Love, the Together as One. Then you got Surrender. I mean, everything is just, it's syrupy sweet, right in that sweet spot of every other glam metal or hair metal or whatever you want to call it, those bands of that age. It had the power ballads and everything. So it was done, and it was done right.
It was, yeah.
So again, I'm not knocking it, but it had to come in somewhere. And I think the 2 in front of this edged it out just a little. It absolutely, I'm talking to my wife again about it today. And to her, this is probably the one she heard the most back in the day. And she's like, well, Soldiers has to be like the top. I'm like, there's reasons for and against, but for those of us who had just gotten to it, this was the top. And then To Help the Devil is where the world really discovered them. But anyway, so it's an absolute great album. I got up, and back in the day, I met a band in our local area. A friend of mine, I was in my bedroom. I was in the military. So in order to put a poster on the wall, you had to mat it down to something, poster board or something. It couldn't just be tacked on the wall. So I'm at home, and I'm in my dorm room, not at home, in the dorm room, and I'm taking that Stryper poster, the first Stryper poster that came out, which was it's on the other single. This poster here that everybody had, I still have a copy, but I'm tacking that on a thing, and my roommate and a friend of mine, another Christian friend of mine, they come running in. Hey, we met this guy at the Christian bookstore, and he's in a Christian rock band, and they're playing tonight down in Long Beach. We should go. And so we go, and it turns out that their drummer wasn't there, but they had a fill-in guy. And we're talking, and I'm a drummer at that time. I'm a very young drummer, novice drummer, maybe even playing a year and a half, 2 years, right? And they play Stryper Makes Me Want to Sing, and they're like, "Can you play that? Do you want to play with this?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Wait, you have to play it? Did it on stage?
And it was in a parking lot at a chicken restaurant. It was in a parking lot where the kids would drive. It was like a cruising. They would be cruising on that strip in this part of town. And so they would let bands set up in this chicken restaurant in the parking lot to play for all the kids who were just hanging out. And yeah. So, and that at that time, that band was doing stuff like, they did some Stryper, but they were doing like Daniel Band and Philadelphia and some of the other earlier rock albums that came before Stryper, the Barnabases and stuff like that. They didn't do they had a female singer, yeah, and some other bands. But so yeah, so I got to get up there and play Makes Me Want to Sing because my roommate told him, "You gotta let him play it. He plays that song I had a drum set in the dorm room. He plays it. He's always air drumming that, not air drumming it, but he's always playing along to that album all the time in the room. I know he can do it." So yeah. So it's a great album, and I love it. But like I said,
fantastic.
Something had to come in 3.
What I liked about it, when you listen to the first album, Soldiers was an awfully a lot heavier album. It's incredibly heavy, you know what I mean? And it's just a fantastic listen all through it. But you think, "God, this is in some places too heavy," in a good way. For a Christian metal album, it's serious. I found it seriously heavy. You know what I mean? And it was a breath of fresh air. It's all sort of. I think it was to do with the stadiums. I think they were thinking, "Oh, we're going to write more stadium orientated." Because I was talking to a mate, and he's really good songwriter. Because when you write for small venues, you have to write slightly different for stadium rock or metal. So you have to pick the right chords and all this stuff that sounds good in the stadium. And I remember he told me this years ago, and I've always retained it. But when I listen to Soldiers, it's a really, really heavy album, especially compared to the first one. And also, when you listen to their second album, it tends to be really, really bad. But it's a Stryper, their second album eclipsed the first album in my book. It was far better, you know what I mean? It was just a great listen to. I loved it. I did. Just a really, really good, solid album. Well, it could have been my first favourite, but I'll explain that later. But it was a hard one. But yeah, to me, it's one of their best. It's just a solid, heavy metal album, and it's sort of heaviness you want. You know what I mean? When you go in to see a heavy metal concert, you don't want to see ABBA come up in front of you. You want to see heavy metal. You want to see it just delivers in bounds. You know what I mean? I found it an amazing record.
And unless it's a band that's playing all of Anne Murray's "There's a Hippo in My Tub." That's a really heavy album, but
can't get heavier than that, can we?
That's the beauty. That's kind of how you describe that. Soldiers Under Command is on Soldiers Under Command. That's probably where they really mastered the chunk, 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 or chunk, chunk, chunk. Like, and the guitar tone is just so perfectly metal and clear. It's not a grungy, dirty sound. It's just a clean, sharp, it's just unreal sound on that album. So I don't know if they've ever even remastered it or anything. I don't know if they have to, but if they got the King Scott Waters treatment with Rob Caldwell, the Dream Team treatment, be quite something. But I don't know how you improve on it.
Yeah, well, I got a little bargain today. I got a Stryper original album for $5 off. I won an auction, and I put in a price, and it was to hell. And I got it for a $5, which is like 30 quid on Discogs. So you can see how happy I am. I picked a CD up for like a fraction what it was worth. But it was like hard for me because it could change sort of with that album to Soldiers, my favourite album, you know what I mean? But it's just a beautiful album. It's just heavy, and it's just you just can't fault it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, so I should go next.
Was that yours, number 3, or was that just you commenting on?
Just commenting, it's me next. I go Snap with Greg. I got Against the Law. Now, the only downside, Shining Star was a cover version.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
racking my brain.
That's
And I
horrible.
thought I've heard of that one before, so I went on the internet and Googled it. It was an Earth, Wind and Fire song.
Oh, no.
And that was the down point. I didn't like that song at all. Terrible. But it had some good tracks on it. You know, and I could have given more. The best one for me, I think, was Two Bodies. I thought was good. I hope I pronounced that right. Two Bodies. But Lady, I really enjoyed that song in like a good ballad. It wasn't sort of bad. And yeah, it was just a great album. It could have swapped places with the first album, but it was an enjoyable listen. And and I think after, because Scott said after the last one, which was they got a lot of flack for it apparently, and what Scott said on his thing that you sent me, I read it, and he said they were trying to repair some of the damage apparently, because when they did the other stuff, was it In God We Trust, they got a lot of criticism apparently, and that was like a comeback album. But yeah, it was a decent album. Apart from that Earth, Wind and Fire cover, that was just a spoiler for me.
And the song Lady, I didn't really like the Stryper song Lady very much, but it did remind me of the song Lady by Styx, which I do. And it's as syrupy. That's a 100% syrupy song as it is, especially the singer. And Michael Sweet and Styx singer really sound alike. But there's a little heavier guitar chunk to Styx's Lady, but they reminded me of each other. I'm sorry, Mega Jeff. Did we get your number 3?
Yeah, mine was Soldiers.
Oh, okay, yours was Soldiers. Okay, so we're all down to the top 2 now, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Just while I've got him here, just since it's my turn, just show a few more. And Mega Jeff.
Sorry, Greg. Hang on a minute, mate. Just give me a slap round the face.
Yeah, Mega Jeff, if you have some merch or whatever you think you'd kind of want to show, I wouldn't mind seeing it. But yeah.
Dang it, I wish I'd have thought about it. I mean, I most of the stuff I got, like even this T-shirt is just, the one I'm wearing is just a reproduction that they recently were selling. But I wish I had some of the stuff from back in the original days. But
yeah,
I mean, I have things like, you know, the various picture discs, and I have a bunch of Bibles that I've caught in concert from over the years.
Oh.
A lot of which I've shown a lot of that in videos a long time ago, but it has been a while. But
I wonder if Headbanging Zulu knows about that Stryper threw Bibles out in the crowd. That's just the first album shirt, but
was that before Health and Safety? You wouldn't be allowed to do it over here, or
they
after?
They still do it. They still do it to this day. So they throw out little paperback New Testaments that have a Stryper sticker on them, and pretty much the same Bible. I like I said, I caught a bunch of them in the '80s, and I got one like back on their 7 weeks tour back in 2003, and they were the same Bible. It's just different stickers. So, and I got some, and I'm trying to think where they are. They're somewhere close by, but I can't recall.
They won't be allowed to do it in this country. The Health and Safety will get them. Hang on, Greg. I'm just going to.
Yeah, that's a tour. I saw that tour. One of the shows there was in Virginia, and I was like, yay. So I got to see that.
Did they doctor the sound up with the crowd? Did they pipe in crowd noise for this?
Well, I'm pretty sure that most of those clips are from different shows, so they probably did do something in order to make it consistent. But like when I saw them, it was in a club that holds maybe 1,000 people, and it was pretty packed. I mean, it was kind of like their return, and so people were excited. And when I saw them on that time, Robert came out, Oz came out, and I think the two of them came out, and they walked up and down the line of us where we were waiting to get in, and they came out and talked to us and shook our hands and everything. So,
wow! Again, you got to meet them.
Yeah, I've met them a couple of times. I met them in Louisiana too. So, yeah, they're pretty personable. They just kind of hang out afterwards. So, I have that book, but I have the audio version where the guy's reading the book. So
that's easier because the print on this is the smallest print I've ever seen on a book. I've listened to that book, not read that book. Yeah. And I actually got to I was at Sweden Rock Festival a few years ago, and Stryper was playing, and they had a press conference. So they're at the table in a tent, at the table, the whole band. So I got to ask Michael what about the Live in Japan VHS? Is that ever coming out on DVD or vinyl or CD? Nope, they don't have the rights to it at all. I mean, I can watch it on YouTube. I watch it fairly regularly. That's unbelievable because I think it's the To Hell with the Devil tour, but out in Japan. So it's got good quality. It's not the best because it's off of VHS, but yeah, I asked them about that, and no, they couldn't do anything about it. So
I do have one thing I'm going to grab. You keep talking.
okay.
Oh, cheers.
But yeah, and I think I've got 2 copies of this for you, Steve.
Thank you.
This is before Yellow and Black Attack. This is the demos of those songs, like the demos they had for the first album.
Wow.
So it's a raw sound. Like if you can't find that 1984 original release, because the Yellow and Black Attack you have has, I think, 8 songs on it. And the one from 84 had 6, but here's the demos. So it's just raw and it just sounds grittier than the one you heard.
And it was actually that was before they called themselves Stryper too. That's the Rock's Regime demo, which is why you see the title there. He just covered it with his thumb, but it's in the middle there.
Yeah, there's their
they were called Rock's Regime, and so yeah.
And that's when they well, here's the flyers. I can't remember. Rock's Regime with Metallica, it says here on one of these. The white one, here they are backing up Metallica.
Yeah.
Probably before Metallica got big too.
I actually knew that.
Oh. Yeah, that's cool.
I knew the Stryper had a relationship with Metallica, or they backed them or something.
Yeah, and just because I have it handy, Zulu, do you have this album, The Covering?
No.
It's where they cover. Oh, you don't? So you haven't heard it? Okay,
no.
Can you see the track listing on there very well? It's small print. But they cover Blackout from the Scorpions, Set Me Free by the Sweet, Heaven and Hell from Sabbath, and just a really, really good set list. The only one I didn't really care for a lot was their Zeppelin cover. It didn't, I don't know what they did to it, but there's a great Van Halen cover. But yeah, this is a great album. It's just a covers album. I hope they come up with another one. This is an excellent album. But anyway, I should get to number 2. This was horrible because I knew this was going to be horrible to pick, but well, I've got to go with Soldiers, number 2. Soldiers Under Command, number 2. Just because Soldiers Under Command might be their best song to me, and it's surrounded by Surrender at the back end, which is another 10. The Rock That Makes Me Roll is a 9.5. Reach Out's a 9. Together Forever is a 9.5. Makes Me Want to Sing 9.5, and that's nitpicking. So they're all pretty well 10s, so I didn't want to rate just all 10s. But yeah, and I got to see them on, well, I saw them on the Hell with the Devil tour, but, or was it? No, it was the Soldiers Under Command tours when I saw them. So it was funny because the opening band was just a band with jeans and T-shirts, just some local band out of Toronto that was whatever. Then the curtain went down, and then when Stryper came on, it was just an explosion of, I don't remember what song they opened with, maybe Soldiers, but it just was an explosion of yellow and black and sound, and it was just unreal, and the crowd loved it too. It's like seeing Leonard Skinner at Reno in a parking lot for my birthday, hot summer night, but seeing that crowd for Skinner, it was just such a good time feeling song and summertime music and like Freebird Live. And so, but with Stryper, it's the same thing. Everybody's in common with this certain ideal that they have and everything else. But yeah, no, I love Soldiers Under Command, except for there's a couple of slow songs. Well, First Love I didn't care for, and Together is one. But after that, nothing worse than a 7.5. So there's my number 2.
Which means we know what your number 1 is, but
I know. So much for building up the drama.
Well, here, I guess before I did this, I basically, back in the day, I used to always make these like photo albums, and I would cut out paper, cut out magazine pictures, and I guess, what do they call that? Scrapbooking? I guess we did that with metal bands back in the day. We'd have our Def Leppard book, our Kiss book, and we'd take the Circus magazine and Cream magazine and all the magazines, and we'd buy 2 of them, and we'd cut them up. So we have 2 of them. One, we get pictures on both sides. If they were really good pictures, you get 3 of them, because then you can hang them up on your wall. Anyway, I had a Stryper book back in the day, and what it is, it's got a lot of that, but it's also got a lot of concert photos. So it's got my ticket stubs and concert photos of all the times I've seen them. And I was just going to share, since I told the story earlier.
Wow.
So this is the first time I met Robert. This was in Louisiana before we went to that club outside. And if I can see that, so there's me and Robert
Wow.
backstage. And then there's all the band. There's Michael and Oz. And you can't see Tim. He's behind my head right there. And then there's Robert down at the bottom. And then these are all of my friends. So we met them in Louisiana at the time, just kind of hanging out with them there backstage. So that was before the one in Tallahassee that I was talking about, which is here. That's a tour bus that Robert took us on there. And that was after the show. We met Tim, and there's Robert again. This was before the show in the daytime after Pizza Hut. We went, and he came out and hung with us. Robert was out there talking to us. And then that's us in front of the tour bus again.
Oh, nice tour bus. Wow.
Yeah, I think it was a rental. It wasn't like it belonged to them. But then, so then you got, and unfortunately, the top of this got wet, so it's kind of messed up. But there was Oz after the show. And then there's Michael, and you could see he stopped and took a picture with me, but this guy was carrying him, helping him to the bus. And that's a friend of mine that went with us. So he took a quick picture with us and moved on. So,
Wow.
but so that would have been, and like I said, it was in a small club. So the pictures were like, I mean, we were right at the stage.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I was right at his feet. It was just right there. Now, there's one picture in here that I find funny. And you mentioned reading on Scott Waters' thing, and I think it was either on his site or it was on one of the early Stryper sites. But there's this photo right here of Robert. And it appears, I think it might be on Scott's site, but it's also on some other Stryper sites. Anyway, I took the photo, and then at some point 30 years ago, 20 years ago, when the internet was starting, I must have scanned it and I shared it, and then it appeared on other sites. So I'm like, hey, I took that picture. But anyway,
yeah,
my little claim to fame there. But
Wow,
but yeah, so
frame that is. I've got a fantastic claim to fame as well.
yeah.
Right, I'm going to show you this. This is my most prized possessions, and it always hangs on the back of my chair. And it was a concert I went to, and the singer, and this is the T-shirt. It was Bruce Springsteen, yeah.
Cool.
Right, that's the front. And it's one of my most prized. Well, it probably in the top 5 prized possessions. This is. It's original Milton Keynes, the 22nd of May, 1993. And he had the two out. He weren't with the E Street Band. He had those two bands. He had a new band, and he had Lucky Town, the 2 LPs. I thought they were pretty good, but people say they weren't his best. Now, what's miraculous with this concert? I was near the front of the stage. And at that time, Springsteen used to do a 4 hour to 4 hour 25 set. I've seen him twice. Again, at the Aston Villa football ground where Ozzy was born. And he was on stage for 4 hours 25. So what he did was he used to drink a lot of water for the last hour. And he drank this water and he used to spit it in the air, spray it. But this time he missed. He caught me straight in the face because I was right at the foot of the stage. I had a fantastic view of the gig. We pushed the girl up on stage. Now, when he kissed the girl and he was singing Dancing in the Dark, he sort of spat, but it didn't come out right. And I got a face full of spit from Bruce Springsteen. And
I'll never wash my face again.
Yeah.
No, and he sort of looked down at me, right? He was singing in the middle of a song. I can't for the life of think of me what it was. He was sort of looking at me and he sort of nodded, but he didn't miss a you know, when you're singing, he didn't miss a beat. He was singing, is he all right? You know, I got it. Yeah, that's my claim to fame. Yes. Springsteen went, because I was right near the front, because we got in, we squeezed down the front because I was on my own. And it was when it was a Milton Keynes Bowl, which is a huge venue. It's still there. And it's when concerts were affordable in this country. And it was a fantastic day out. I can't remember the support band, but it was just a fantastic day out. And to clump it all, Springsteen spat in my face. And, it doesn't only could happen to me, I tell you.
Nice. Well, you admit, Greg mentioned that some weirdo, just band in jeans opened for Stryper when he saw him. I don't recall all the various opening bands. The only one I do recall, and it would have been on the Hell with the Double tour, was I got to see them with Hurricane opening. Hurricane, if you remember, they did a couple albums back in the day.
Yeah, I've got one of them.
Yeah. I mean, the guitar player was the Rudy Sarzo's brother, and the bass player was Carlos Cavazzo's brother. And of course, the singer was his name, Kelly Hansen. He's the guy who sings with Foreigner now. But so they were fairly new, and I remember seeing them at that time, and I was like, oh, that was cool. But I don't remember any of the other bands that opened up for them over the years. Seems like sometimes I saw them in like a college auditorium at Tulane University in Louisiana, and I don't know if there was an opening band, but maybe there was. I don't know. Anyway, all right, getting into it. Number 2 for me is going to be Yellow and Black Attack, the original version.
Yeah, the original.
The original. Now, like the others, and maybe you all do know, maybe some other people don't know, I do have 3 versions of this. Okay. And just so everybody else knows, maybe you all do know, maybe not, but so when it first came out, it was cropped incorrectly. See, the finger is like halfway cut off. This rocket says MS, and you barely see it. This one just says 777. You can't see the name on there. And so each one of the missiles has a OSFOX, OF, MS, Michael Sweet, but you don't see, and this one says Tim Gaines, but you can barely see it. It says PG. And then this one has no name, and the hand is cropped. Well, it was released on black vinyl, and it was released on yellow, which is, you can't see this here, but on yellow vinyl with the same cropping error. Well, I don't know how long later, but shortly thereafter they reissued it. Let me pull it out here, get some more glare. Properly cropped. So now you see all the missiles and all the hand, and so you see a lot more of the picture than on that other one. So the world is a little smaller, but the rockets are bigger, and then the world on this one is bigger because they cropped it wrong. So that's why I have 3 of those. And then I do have the one that he showed and on blue. I don't have the one that's got the square cut, but there is a copy at my local bookstore, at one of my local record stores, that's the club edition. And I really do want to have it just because, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like, do I really need it? My wife's like, do you really need it? I'm like, well, I collect Stryper stuff, and I need the copy that's square. Anyway, so it doesn't justify it. But so as mentioned, this one, it has this one came out, it's very much more compressed, very much more squeaky clean. The first one was much raw and heavier. I would say probably one of their heavier sounding ones, just because it's kind of a raw in the production, and everything is just beefier. On this album, they took away a lot of that beefiness. It's kind of squeaky clean. It's too compressed. They added Reason for the Season, which was a non-album track, but was one of the singles we got after that album came out in '84. This single came out with Reason for the Season, backed with their version of Winter Wonderland, probably one of my favorite Christmas songs of all time, their version. Anyway, so when they released this album, they put Reason for the Season on there, and then they did a ballad version of that's on the demo. They got a ballad version. But anyway, yeah. So this one's much more. After the success of Soldiers and after the production on that, they tried to go back and mimic that. But honestly, the original, I think everybody I know, the original is by far their favorite preferred one. So I go with that. It's just, the 6 songs. That's what I saw. You know, number one, Boss Man, Jesus Christ. That's what turned me off initially. I saw the picture and I'm like, these guys look cool. But I saw that and I'm like, no. And I was a churchgoer. I was a Christian, but I didn't listen to Christian music. So I didn't really give it much credence until a little later. And then, you know, so and then I would have to say it was almost tough not putting this in number one, just because this was probably one that changed my life the most. I played it to death the most. And every one of these songs is just like, it just feels like it's ingrained in me. So it's really, really top notch. But, you know, number one is number one for a reason. So anyway, so that's my number two.
Right. I shan't talk much. I've talked about this record. I think Greg mentioned it. Mine's got to be Soldiers Under Command. The only downside about the whole record was Battle Hymn. Did anyone like that track? Or was
I do not like that song.
I mean, Elvis did the best version of that, and he did chicken out of it. You only get like 2.5 minutes of it, and I thought he did chicken out of it a bit. But yeah, it's a great album. It was a lot stronger in the first. Well, I haven't heard the proper first, but it's a really, really heavy metal album, and it's just a great record through and through. Lot of tens. I like the Rock That Makes Me Roll was a good track. Did you like that one, Greg?
Oh yeah, it's a 9 or a 10.
Makes Me Want to Sing, a 10. Soldiers Under Command's definitely a 10. And yeah, it's just got a great track listing. It's just a great song. But I shan't talk about too much about that one because I want to save it for the next one. But yeah, it could have swapped places with number one, and you both guess what that's going to be. But yeah, it's a great album. Fantastic. Can't knock it.
Okay,
All right.
do number one then. That's the number one. The original, the 84 release, not the later compressed. There's only 6 songs on it. But every single song, because it's consistently heavy. Like with Soldiers Under Command, you've got your couple of ballads. Like it's just Tell With the Devil has their couple of ballads. This just rocks. So there's one a little slower that's it starts out a little slow, but it still has a chunk to it. That's all. That's what's the key. And this is for you, Headbanging Zulu too. This is going on the
cheers.
Headbanging Zulu UK.
I'm honored.
And this is, what label is this?
They're on Enigma.
Enigma, yeah. It's odd that it has white. I don't know if that would. Is that the proper white label?
Yeah, they have a. That's what mine looks like. It's okay. White on one side and red Enigma logo on the other.
Okay, and but yeah, so that's it's just because the other albums I have to skip a song every one of them, but that one I don't, and it's just too good and just a little more show and tell. I just made this coat myself, just a thrift store cheap coat. You know, there would be regularly more money, but whatever. Just put Stryper on the front, but just stuck that on the back.
Wow.
Just had a few comments when I
keeps you warm. It looks lovely.
Yeah,
not warm enough for how cold it is here with the blizzard. But
I did something similar, but not with a jacket. But I bought one of those knockoff to hell with the double patches with the angels and everything. It was like embroidered or whatever. Probably bought it at some mall shop or something. But then I sewed it and pressed it on the back of like a denim looking shirt, just a shirt that was like made of a blue denim. And then I cut the sleeves off. So now it looks like a biker shirt. And I wore that when I play in concerts sometimes. Well, I did 15 years ago. I haven't done it recently, but It was my rock attire.
Fair play.
Oh, cool. Very good. And then just the last item. This was an eBay purchase. Just on the front. To heck with the devil. Yeah, that's right. And then on the back, though, is kind of the selling point. So I just something I never see, and I thought, and the price was pretty cheap, so I thought that was pretty darn nice.
It's cool.
And, I've got 5 out of the. Well, I didn't know whether to add to the 8 songs. Oh, Canadian VC superstar Dan Powers. Wow. We're talking our number one Stryper album off the first early era, the first 5 albums. So we're on number 1 now, and I've got.
Hi, Dan.
Yeah, Dan, what's your number 1, by the way? But if you just take the first 6 songs on the album, I've got 5 out of the 6 are 10 out of 10s, and then only You Won't Be Lonely because it's a little slower. And actually, I gave Reason for the Season and Winter Wonderland 7.5s. I like those. Those are fun. And yeah, those are probably 2 of my favorite Christmas songs, if not favorite. But anyway, we'll hopefully Dan will comment on what his favorite Stryper is. And you can go to the next now and hear what your guys' big number 1 is.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
Hang on a minute, mate, Dan. I'll be with you in a sec. Oh, I'll just try to work it out. Hang on a sec. You tell me brain cells are going.
well, obviously, then I guess for me, leaving number 1 for me was going to be Against the Law. So.
Oh yeah! Wow.
Now.
How?
Probably. So the brief history behind this was the band was going through some rough times. They were. You read this in his biography, but they were always pressured with the Christian stuff, and as far as the way that they were looked at and judged. So basically, this was kind of her comeback. They're like, you know what? You all hold us to this high standard. We're just people too, and we're not. We're against your law, basically. In other words, you can't put us into this box and make us feel like, judgmental, like the Christian church would do. Oh, I saw him, one of the guys drank a beer or something like that. So this was kind of a response of rebellion, retaliation about just all of the years of attack that they had. And so it is one of their heaviest. They had, who was that producer? Tom Werner or somebody, one of the guys who was big back then, who brought him in. They had one of the, a really high-end producer. The label really, blew lots on this record. They wrote songs that were not as Christian per se. They weren't as blatantly, Christian per se. Songs that were a little more love song, lady, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, heavier stuff, Rock the Hell Out of You. And I'm going to tell you. Do what?
I noticed that with Lady. I actually wrote it down. I'll show you just in case of transparency. If you look at the comment I wrote, it says, is this a Christian song, more like a world song? And that's what I wrote down about Lady. So I agree with you there, yeah.
Yeah, and actually they have a video for that song. If you go look it up, they got a lot of flack for that video, I believe, because there's a girl in the video and, she's taking a bath. It's borderline risque. But the point was, that's not Michael's wife. Why is he singing a song? Even criticizing the video making, that, you're not going to pull your wife in and sing a song to her. It's just a song. And you have a girl.
Bassist walk as well.
Yeah.
So did he leave? Did someone leave the band at that time? I read today as well.
Well, after this album is when Michael left. This is basically when the band broke up. So
no. Did the bass guitarist or something?
Oh no. So the bass guitarist left during To Hell with the Devil. He left after Soldiers Under Command, and they replaced him. And I'll show you. They replaced him. And I got pictures here. Real quick.
Oh, and Jeff, you might have missed it, but Dan wrote what his favorite Stryper album is, and he wrote, my favorite Stryper album, probably Against the Law.
There you go.
His number 1 as well.
So this was when To Hell with the Devil came out. They had this guy here on bass. Now, I forget his name. I believe he was in like Leatherwolf or something at the time. He was from some other 80s band. So he was here. They had his costume made, did all the photo sessions. I don't know if he actually played on the album. I can't recall. But Tim came back. There's the photo with Tim, the original bass player, wearing the same costume as the other guy. And you can see if you look at his sleeves, the sleeves are too short for Tim. Tim's a much bigger guy than that young guy was. They put him in the same costume, and it was a little too tight. So he was gone, but he came back. I don't know. I think he still recorded or the album, or maybe not. I'm not recalling for sure. Never a huge fan for him, but Against the Law, Against the Law, heavier. So But yeah, so by this point, it was still, it was still the same guys. That was just a temporary thing a couple albums before. Now I'm gonna be totally different from you all. I absolutely think their version of Shining Star is stellar. If you watch the guitar solos, the double guitar solos, blow me away. The heaviness of the song, the way it's done, blows me away. If you watch the video, which I've seen numerous times, it is just so fun. And it takes a song that was already a blast and it turns it into a Stryper blast.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first times we really got to see the band with their new blue and black striped costumes, getting rid of the yellow. They went with the blue and black. It's in the video, the blue and black drum set that Robert had. The dual guitar, Oz has a silver and black guitar. It's just the two of them playing off of each other. To me, it is just an absolute knock out of the park stellar song for a cover tune. So I, for one, thought that was a really strong track. It was the first single, and I loved it. But overall, the album itself, while it didn't have a lot of the, like I say, blatant religious stuff, it's very, very much a morally Christian worldview song. Not that kind of man. He's talking about not being fallen into temptation with women. Two-time woman. He's talking about, the dealing with women who are cheating and stuff like that. Rock the People. It's just an anthem about what they're doing. Two bodies, one mind, one soul. It's a song about, marriage. You got two bodies, one mind, one soul. And then Shining Star, Ordinary Man, great stuff. Lady, beautiful love song. Caught in the Middle, as Greg had mentioned, probably just one of the most stellar songs ever. And Rock the Hell Out of You, probably the heaviest Stryper song ever of this era. And if you're a drummer or an air drummer, it's going to drive you nuts because it is just nonstop. And it is one of my absolute favorite drum songs to air drum too.
Did it sound a bit like a Judas Priest song, that Rock the Hell Out of You? He was doing the high-pitched vocals. And I got that Judas Priest vibe from that song.
Yeah, that makes sense because he was screaming really high. Also,
the musical side of it as well, with that fast drum beat. It's sort of like when I listened to it, I just realised, because I was thinking he's got a lot less songs than me. Then I realised that I haven't turned the page over in my book. So yeah, I found Rock the Hell Out of You. I put Judas Priest. It reminded me a lot of Priest song myself.
And this would have been, here we are in 1990. So, this is in the heyday when Priest was doing that stuff. So yeah, they were obviously influenced by a lot of those bands, but yeah, so it was at this point, the band didn't do a whole lot of touring for this album. And then Michael left and they went on as a three-piece. Oz took over on vocals. Believe it or not, he can do a lot of the vocals really well. There's a video on YouTube of them playing overseas it's a small set of songs, but it's just a three-piece. Then for a short period of time, they brought in a new singer who donned the black and blue leather clothing, and that was Dale Thompson from Bride. I don't think there's a single clip anywhere of anything from that era, but I have seen one photo, which I assume is from a live concert. It appeared in an issue of Heaven's Metal back in the day, but I've never seen anything beyond that. It's a picture of Dale on stage wearing black and blue from that look. I don't know how that went over. It seemed like it would have been cool. I just wish there was some evidence, some recording, some video of him. But then after that, the band basically quit, and Tim and Oz went on to do Sin Dizzy, another band, which has been released on vinyl in recent years. So, but that one to me is just, it's got to be one of their heavier. They pulled the plugs out of this whole squeaky clean stuff. Everything you saw in God We Trust being so overproduced, all of that's out the window. And this album has got the warmth and depth of a solid metal album of 1990. And so, and the songs are great. They're catchy. And, I think overall, it's probably just one of their high watermarks, and they were trying to make it different. People said they went secular. Maybe they did. Maybe they kind of tried to cross over. They got so much flack for being the squeaky clean choir Christian boys who sang about Jesus that they wanted to do something different and say, look, we can be different. And so they did that. So,
So I read a I don't know where if it is YouTube, I'll send it across. And apparently the lead singer said they weren't a Christian band, so he could fool me. And they would, I remember that era. It's probably the same era they were trying to push back from the Christian stuff. So I can get where you're coming from there. Cause I saw it on an interview that you said we're not a Christian. I thought, yes, you are, mate. You know what I mean? But they were trying to push themselves away from it. So it's probably around about that era then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strange. Should we do my number one? And I bet you two can guess what it's going to be. It's all because of one song. I bet you can. It did. I'll give you a clue. It did very well on MTV, and it's one of the most commercial albums. I'm not going to put it up. We know what it looks like. But to me, if I had a listing of the most commercial albums I've ever heard, that's got to be in the top 5. It's not take anything away from it, but it's a really, really commercial record. And also, the one song that sticks out is Honesty. And to me, that really, hang on, I'm on the wrong list again. You can tell I'm getting stupid in the old age. Yeah. Now, the only what I call Waste of Space track was the first one.
What?
You lads might know it, but why do they put that on? Is it something to get you in the mood for it or something?
You
I
think?
didn't. Was it an intro or something? I didn't understand.
Oh, Abyss. Okay, that's what you're talking. Okay, I thought you meant To Hell with the Devil.
No,
No,
the Abyss.
yeah, a bit. That's just an intro where the curtain's going to come down, where they walk on stage. Just a filler that other bands do the same thing. I just
Well, it was setting up the whole thing because the abyss is where the devil lives. So they're making it here a little bit of this hell attitude, and then all of a sudden hell with the devil. So it kind of builds the tension for drama.
Yeah,
It reminded me of the Electric Eye. The Electric Eye with that Hellion build.
Yeah, Hellion at the beginning, right? Yeah, same type of thing.
That's what vibe I got from it. But I thought, well, but To Hell with the Devil's a 10.
There we go.
The number one song on there is Honesty. And that's to me probably of all the songs I heard. I know Greg's going to hate it. I know he is. But it did well on the MTV, apparently. It was one of the singles off the record.
Yes.
And that hit the spots. You know what I mean? I had to listen to that song about 12 or 15 times. It's such a beautiful song. But the rest of it's fantastic. Sing-along song is a 10. Just amazing stuff. But it's really, really commercial. You're thinking, well, are they going to do anything better after this? You know what I mean? It sort of pushed it to the end of the spectrum. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's my thoughts on it. But Honesty, because of all the Stryper tracks I heard this today and this week, that to me has got to be one of my favourites. It's up there. It's the best one I heard. Just a beautiful song. You know what I mean?
They were huge. They were hugely known for their power ballads, and they always did great jobs with their power ballads. And that is ranking up there for sure. And but they got a lot of on that MTV call-in thing. They got a lot of popularity, at that time. So it really put them on the market. It put a Christian band up there in the realm with the regular bands, and which is what they wanted to do. So Enigma tried to then capitalize on that, and they signed Barren Cross, which is another phenomenal Christian band, and Enigma signed them, and they didn't have near the popularity, but they are a phenomenal band who had quite a few Enigma releases too. So, and some videos and stuff like that. So happened into that new Christian rock realm the labels were trying to do at that point. So
yeah, I mean, it's not far off the perfect album when you look at it. It's just, I mean, some will disagree, but it's got to be. It's just every single track, sort of, not a bad track on it. You know what I mean? And it's very hard.
Like I said, I think the only reason it went lower on my list is because it was so overplayed. Every time you turned around, Free, Calling on You, Honestly, and again, like I said, it's hard to rank them, but it had to be somewhere. And so for me, it just, it was a little overplayed. But phenomenal album for sure.
I mean, you ask me next week, and you say after I've listened to it another 3 or 4 times this week, you ask me to do this again next week, I'd say no. It'll be Soldiers Under Command's my favourite. It's just. It's one of these records that obviously I had to put that one first because it had the best song I heard, and it was just a fantastic LP. That's what took it over Soldiers. but maybe if it never had that honesty on it, and that just hypothetically never had that song on it, maybe Soldiers would have been my favourite. It was so hard, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that, I'm being honest, that's why I judged that album to be number one on that. I want to hear Greg's version of Honesty in a minute, because I know what he's going to say. But that's why, yeah. So that's why I put you on the spot. And yeah, that's why I chose it over Soldiers, because of that one song.
And it's a beautiful song.
And
What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I guess we got to shut her down, eh? We ran out of time, haven't we?
I can't hear you. Hello, is anybody there?
Yeah. Go on, Greg, speak up. Let's have your. Oh, he's gone.
He's like, you're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Oh wow! That means.
Is this mic on?
Is this mic on?
Okay, I'll give you my. I did it out of 10. I didn't give it a 0, which is reserved for disco and country or something that's just horrible like that. But I gave it a 2. That's twice as big as a 1. So I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Now, mic drop. Mic drop. Don't.
Yeah, mic drop. That's how. Yeah, I know. No, I just not a ballad. I love Scorpions ballads, and I like some of the on the first album, You Won't Be Lonely. To me, that's sort of a rock ballad, not in the classic sense of honestly in that, but yeah, no, I'm really tough with ballads. I don't know. I just want to rock. Come on, rock.
Yeah.
Well, Stryper just you knew with Stryper you were going to get a ballad or two, so you just had to accept it. So
except on the first album.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with Jeff. I found all the ballads I heard, the majority of them were really good. There's a couple of ones there I found sort of pretty, the textbooky type ballad. But yeah, I agree with you, Jeff. They did do a good ballad.
I think honestly, isn't that the video where they did it on a concert stage that's really yellow and black, and the floor is yellow and black? Like, it really looks phenomenal, but I can't remember if it's that song that was that video.
Wasn't honestly the one they did like there was one that had like a glass piano, but then there was also one that they did that was like in their garage. Was that honestly where it was like them packing up to leave for the tour and Robert's in his garage and they're playing drums, and that was a ballad, but it's blurred together.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't listen to ballads, so I don't know, but I just remember one had a really, unless that was Free or Calling on You, maybe, I don't know. One of them had a
both Free and Calling on You, I think they were both live looking concert things.
I'm thinking of
What was the other big song off that album, Jeff? Apart from Honesty, there was another one, wasn't there?
Well, Calling on You and Free were both the big hits that came before. Yeah, Honestly is the one where they're in the garage. I looked at it just now. They're in the garage, and you see Michael's at the piano writing music and playing, and then the drums come in, and it's just kind of like a home video stuff of them playing. So,
okay. And Zulu, you were asking about what other song was a hit on Sirius Satellite Radio, which I don't know if it's out of Canada or States, but I've heard To Hell with the Devil on there before on that radio station. So it's in North America, you hear that song anyways, which is a shock. But
yeah, because the two big hits that came out before Honestly were the Calling on You was the biggest hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then Free was like the next one they released, and it was a really big hit. And then Honestly did come out, and it was a single, and it was like the big power ballad type hit. I don't know if they had any other quote unquote singles from that album, but those three were the ones that really charted for that, I think.
And whereas More Than a Man is the best song out of the works, but they didn't do anything with that one.
Yeah, well, they didn't do much with the heavier stuff. They were definitely looking to get radio play as much as they could. So,
yeah, that's what it was all back then, wasn't it? More radio play, the more singles you pushed. But now it's gone the other way, isn't it? It's all about touring now. And
nobody plays music on the radio. There is no more MTV, so they don't have to worry about getting that kind of popularity. So, nowadays they just rock it out.
Yeah, because I hold the world record there because I was at Telford Ice Rink, and I was one of the first people in the UK, and it was like MTV over here was like non-existent. You couldn't afford it in your house. And especially because we was all broke anyway. If you wanted to watch it, even when it was going well, you had to go to the local ice rink, just because they could afford it. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And I saw a lot of songs like Michael Jackson's one of the first people in the UK to ever see it. And that's Shock. I think it was Thriller album. They did the first one off that, and nobody else in the UK had seen it except for me. And it came out in America. Then they showed it in the UK, and we were shocked. But I mean, MTV, I know it, but we had it eventually, but we never had it because we were too broke. But it was ages before we got that because nobody could afford it. You know what I mean?
I didn't have it as a teenager either, but my best friend did across the street. So I lived at his house. I just was always over there, and we watched MTV nonstop all the time.
We didn't. We used to watch the old. Did you get the old? I don't think you did. We had the old grey whistle test over here, and that was the program to watch.
Yeah, I was in a record store yesterday, and they had a DVD of the old grey whistle test, and they had about 15 bands, just one song each.
Yeah,
highlights.
Yeah, all that cable stuff. It was like I say, if you wanted to see that stuff, you had to go down the local ice rink or somewhere. You know what I mean? It wasn't on people coming through people's aerials, and sort of the affluent people probably had it, but we didn't. And it's caused more fights because everybody was fighting who wanted to watch what. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And actually, I had a question for Mega Jeff. Do you have the CD Stryper live extended versions? I left it in my car, but it's that extended version series where.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do.
Is that the exact same live album as one of the other ones?
I mean, it feels like that same thing because they don't have a lot of live stuff, but there's something it seems like, and maybe that's why initially I didn't buy it for the longest time, but I'm thinking it's something different. It seems like I read somewhere that it was from other shows or something, but
yeah, because I forgot what I was going to say because Dan's commented here. I want to see Canada much music, yeah, in the Pepsi Power Hour, yeah. Yeah, at least we had that, yeah. What Zulu had was live at the BBC.
Yeah, we had that.
That's a sure buy, like a Thin Lizzy album live at the BBC. You know the sound quality is going to be perfect. Like it's Deep Purple live at the BBC and on and on. So at least you had that. Oh, look at this. Yeah, is that the extended versions?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm thinking if that was the same as live in Puerto Rico or one of their other albums, I don't know, like live albums. But it starts with Makes Me Want to Sing, so I'm just wondering if one of these other live ones had the same.
Because it came out, it seemed like it came out around the same time as the 7 Weeks album, didn't it? I always thought that maybe they used some of that stuff again, but
maybe 7 Weeks with sing-along song.
It starts with different songs, so maybe they only pick and choose. But
yeah, because Makes Me Want to Sing just on that extended versions, Makes Me Want to Sing just starts out of nowhere. There's no introduction, no nothing. So maybe it is the same thing, just a few songs missing or added, but the same concert.
All right, it says recorded live November 11th, 2003 in Georgia, live in Athens, Georgia.
Oh.
So it must be a different show because the 7 Weeks has got different pieces from different concerts.
Oh, okay. There we go.
So I guess it is genuine. I'd forgotten about it. Maybe it is a genuine, somewhat of a live album then. A standalone live album, I should say. Yeah, I forgot it had a date on it. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So, Mega Jeff, have you seen a Live in Japan concert on YouTube, or did you have the VHS?
I have the VHS. I have the VHS bounced over to DVD that I digitized it.
Good.
All the VHS stuff from back in the day, I think I had a friend digitize them on the DVD. There was the Stryper Expo. There was some VHS tapes that were released from the Stryper Expos back in like 2001. Before Stryper got back together, there was some expos, and I had those bounced over. So yeah, that's Stryper in Japan, and I think I even have. There was a bootleg CD version of it. I think it may have been a vinyl edition, but I don't have any of that. but I think I have a digital copy of the songs, a live thing. My prized possession from that time period was a VHS tape of like one of their first publicly available concerts from like 1983. They played it like a Calvary Chapel or something. It's them in a church. They got the yellow and black. I'm pretty sure they were called Stryper, but it's not too far off from the Rocks Regime days. But it was when they made the transition to being a Christian band. And there's a song or two on there that are never made it to the other album that they were working on. There's a song called Rocks Regime, I believe, that they did. We may have them now in the Rocks Regime demos, but back in the day, it was just cool seeing this very young band they had the whole concert, stage shows, everything was taped up in yellow and black, but still it was a small setting. And, but that VHS, I had a friend of mine who was from California. He used to actually go to the sanctuary churches that were the big rock and roll churches, Pastor Bob Beeman. He worked at one of them. So he had an actual first generation copy of that Stryper show. And he bounced it over to VHS, from VHS to video form to DVD. So yeah, it's nice to have a preserved copy that's not a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, which is what I had seen in the past. But that's just great because it's just great watching that show from when they were so young. And a lot of the songs, while they did make it on future albums, and maybe it was, I don't know if it was after the EP or if it was before. Some of the songs are just different. They're in transition. The lyrics are not the same. So, but yeah, that's a great one there too. But the Live in Japan, the big thing that was, I guess, the weird thing for that got a lot of flack was how Michael was dressed. He had the spandex on and it revealed everything. And he got some flack for that because when I saw him in concert at that show where we met him in the club, same concerts, same era, same costumes, I should say. But when he came out, I was wondering what was going to be, are we going to be presented with him in the front of the stage? But he had this bandana, this sparkly bandana on wrapped around his waist that kind of covered down. So I guess he got the hint that, he's not David Lee Roth. Don't be going out there and revealing everything. So he started wearing that. And I also, when he was on the, when Stryper were on was it the music awards, or it was one of those music awards back in the day, and they did Makes Me Want to Sing. He was wearing that. That's, I think, the first time I noticed when he was wearing that. That was shortly after that concert came out. And then he made that TV appearance, and he was wearing this bandana looking thing that covered up his manly parts. So
yeah, so I wonder how many of them. I've always wondered that with these glitter metals in the early 80s. They haven't even put a sock down there, because it must have been a right ego boost. And
a cucumber in aluminum foil. That's what it was. Zucchini. Yeah. A zucchini.
Yeah, I bet somebody said, "Oh, hang on a minute, get a sock and shove it down." I bet a fair few of them did that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the thing, is to get out there and look like you had something. So
yeah. Now I read a comment. I think it was in Crangley, said they dressed like the women, and this, I don't know who said it, but he said they liked the music at that time because the singers looked like your girlfriend. And this is what somebody actually, quite a famous person, said, and that's how he summed up the early '80s scene. He said it was nice to go and see people that dressed and looked like your girlfriend. I don't know who said it, but somebody did. It was quite funny.
I mean, some bands took it to more extremes. You had the Poisons and stuff, which you look at their first album, you're like, are these girls? But yeah. Stryper kind of pushed into that a little. When you go back and look at In God We Trust is the one album that everybody makes fun of Robert. He's got that pose. He's like, and it looks so feminine. And they all, there was all kinds of rumors going around about him because of the way he looked. He's a very, very attractive looking guy with all that makeup and stuff on.
Yeah. I always felt that Dee Snider had the vibe. I think he took some beating.
Well, he was going for the extreme, transvestite looking look. He was going overboard to look like that. he wasn't trying to be pretty.
Was it all based on the Rocky Horror then, I wonder? That's what I've always wondered.
I mean, it is. It's like it is like the
Yeah.
transvestite type scene, like in
Yeah,
Rocky Horror. He wore the women's clothes. They were trying to be outlandish, and he, you know, you hear the stories. They went to the females, you know, big women's shops to get the bigger size clothes, and they used to wear. I mean, when we saw them in the '80s, of course, the Stay Hungry tour and all that, they had costumes made. Dee's wife, phenomenal costume maker. They had great costumes, but if you go back and look at the stuff from the '70s that you're seeing in pictures and stuff, it was flat out drag. It was just drag clothes. It was spandex and makeup and high heels and craziness. So,
I mean, you can understand the '70s with Alice Cooper because that was shock rock, and you can understand why he did it. But in the early '80s, I'm glad, you said that. Because I always felt it was a bit Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Well, you think about it, they were trying to. The bands were trying to be different, and you had bands like the New York Dolls. They were in the late '70s. They had makeup, right? You had Alice Cooper, shock rock, had makeup. Of course, it was horror makeup. So everybody was looking for their little niche that they could be in. And why not just go out there and be as in-your-face, flamboyant, and ridiculous? Because it's going to get a rise out of people and it's going to be memorable. So they went out there dressed like women. Now, how that transitioned into, I mean, obviously people who are in stage shows, people who are, Hanoi Rocks, for instance. I mean, but they were, I don't know when they started doing all that too, but they definitely had the same, Poison vibe at some points. Michael Monroe went off looking like that. But the, when did it all start to where they did a lot of that? Obviously, when you go on stage, they wear a little eyeliner stuff to highlight themselves under the bright lights. That's a common, everybody in production and stage wears makeup. It's not a big deal. That's understood. You're in a big lighted thing, you're going to wear makeup. When did it become to the point where you started doing a big bass and, and it became very effeminate looking? I don't know, but, it was the scene at the time.
I think David Bowie did that as well. And you look at, he was like that in the early '70s.
Yes, his old Ziggy Stardust thing and everything. Bands had done that, but not in the harder rock scene. So, you don't see bands like Deep Purple or bands like the early metal bands, Deep Purples and Rain. Just any of those bands really doing that. So it was just like there you go.
I put mine on, but it's in the bedroom. I've got one as well, but it's in the bedroom.
Yeah.
I keep having to bring it out one night.
Yeah, we send pictures of each other dressed up like this.
I keep that in my closet with the rest of my clothes that I'm not going to show in public. No.
Yeah, it's because I've got no hair, you see. I feel a bit sort of thing. No, I did it as a joke. One of the guys challenged me. I'm not saying it is, he's from Australia. And he said, you wouldn't do it. So I did. I got hold of a wig and I actually did a show. It's on my channel. Me wearing this wig. I've done them in underpants on my head as well. Greg will testify to that.
I wore a wig once or twice actually, only because I play in a band and we played a Halloween Halloween show, and I bought just a big black hair wig, and then I was going for the Shout the Devil, so I wore this big wig. I drew the black under my eyes like Tommy Lee did, and I had a white with a little bit of rouge and the black lines, just like Tommy did in the, more like the Theater of Pain era. But that's what I was going for. But I tell you what, after playing about a set of music in that wig, the next two sets did not have a wig. Still had the makeup, but it's hot. It's hot in those wigs. So, but then like last year we did a Halloween thing and I wore a wig, but I went as Eddie from Stranger Things. So I had the Hellfire Club shirt, and that's, when I wore that Stryper jean jacket looking thing. And, but there was no makeup, just the wig with the bandana, and it was hot too. So I'm not a big fan of wigs.
No, mate. They itch like mad. And I had mine on for about 10 minutes. My head was itchy. I couldn't wait to get the thing off.
And it gets all in your face and stuff.
Yeah, I lost my hair when I was about 21, 22. It started to go. It was the best thing that happened in my life. So I knew I was going bald, you see. My granddad was bald and it ran in the family. And I was having a party when I lost all my hair. I thought it was great. At least it'll save me a fortune in haircuts. And, you ain't got it in your eyes all the time. And it was all gone by the time I was about 30. But all the men, they get these artificial wigs and stuff. I prefer to be out, especially in the summer, it's nice. But I thought it was great.
It's the same thing in my family. Every man in my family goes bald by the time they're in their usually late 20s to early 30s. Um, all my father, all of my uncles, my grandfather, on my father's side, all the men by the time they're 30 were bald. I am the only one in my family that took more after my mother's side of the family.
Yeah.
So I'm not bald, but I am starting to lose it on top now at my old age. My older brother, who resembles me the most, my middle brother looks just like my father's side of the family. He went bald in his late 20s. My older brother, who looks more like me, which means he probably resembles my mother more, he didn't lose his hair till in his late 40s. So I'm now in my later 50s, and I'm just starting to see it thinning on top. So I don't know. But I've always had thick hair and bad eyesight, which is a trait from my mother's side of the family, because my dad's family had blue eyes and eagle-eyed forever, but I've been blind since 7th grade.
Mine was right about 20 years ago. But,
Yeah.
we're all decrepit. Well, apart from Greg, he's a specimen of good health.
Well,
We're all falling to pieces.
Greg's wearing a wig. That's a wig on top of wig. His hair is not real. We know that.
yeah, that's right. $2 at the thrift store. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Just as long as there's no wind, I never have a fan while I'm here. Even if I get too hot, I don't put a fan on me here. So
Well, back after in the late 80s, after I got out of the military, I got out of the military in 88. I had been in a junior ROTC and 3 years of high school, and then went right into the military for 4 years. So 7 years of a military haircut. When I got out, I let it go. And that's when I got into a band. And yeah, my hair got down. I've got a picture on my Facebook page further back, but my hair got down to, shoulder length. So I went through that. But at that point in my life was when I started becoming a bit more serious about my Christian walk. And so while I liked the rocker look, it was still a time and era of the world where you were looked down upon as being less than trustworthy. I would go into stores. I used to work at the base exchange on the military base. I worked there. I could go in there on my day off wearing a typical, camouflage jacket with my long hair. And I knew who the guys in the store were that were the security people, the undercover security. And they didn't know me because I worked in the warehouse. But when I noticed that they would follow me around, I looked like a suspect. I've got this long hair. I look like Rambo walking in there with long hair and a military jacket. When I realized that I was not looked upon as being, I'm an upstanding, trying to be an upstanding, serious Christian guy who reads deep theology and stuff, but people look at you and they don't take you seriously because you look like a rock and roll hooligan. That's the time when I realized, I don't know if I want to go with this look anymore. And so slowly started cutting my hair just because I was trying. And again, it's sellout, call it a sellout. I was trying to present myself to the world, who unfortunately were judging me incorrectly. Just like Stryper, all these bands, can't be a Christian to have long hair. Well, exactly. I kind of wasn't believing that, but I kind of was caving into some of the mentality. And so I started slowly trimming it back to be more respectable and to be taken more serious as a church person than I was. So I went through that. And by the 90s, it was back to being, wasn't quite military style, but it was quite back to being shorter.
Oh, fair play. Anyway, has anyone got anything else to add or take away or talk about? Or
there's so much to talk about, but we won't go any further. This has been going on so long.
Yes.
If anybody's even there still watching.
Yeah, there's 4 people watching. We'll get loads more tomorrow. It all mounts up during the week. And Dan's on. But I think we better wind this one up, folks. It's midnight here. I don't like going over midnight because the neighbours might. I don't want to provoke the neighbours or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that's true. Yeah, when you judge people, you've got to be, mindful of that sort of stuff. That's why I never judge people, no matter what they look like. It's a dangerous territory. But anyway, folks, anybody who's still watching, thanks very much. I'd like to thank our guest, Mega Jeff. You're welcome back, mate. Just tell me when you're available and we'll do something else. Maybe you could choose a topic for us.
Sounds good.
We could discuss it. And Greg, You're a star, mate. And really, Greg can afford the best makeup of us all. He's got the best makeup department. Being a mega star,
that's
he's got
right.
eight people working for him.
Yep,
So anyway, folks, if you're still here, big thanks from me, and I'll let everybody else say goodbye. Then we'll be calling it a night.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Sure. It's been fun. Thanks for including me.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. I guess bye.
All right. See you.